There are moments in your life when the very people you trusted the most become the sharpest instruments of your pain. The very hearts you poured yourself into suddenly turn cold, distant, unrecognizable. And when you look at the wounds they left behind, you ask yourself, why? Why did they do this? Why did they hurt me? Why did the life allow this pain to touch me? But listen closely, because this is where your spirit must awaken. God wanted them to hurt you. Not because God delights in your suffering, not because God enjoys seeing your tears, but because God knows something about you that you do not yet know about yourself. God knows the power inside you that can only be brought out through the breaking. God knows the calling on your life that can only be revealed through the shaking. God knows the strength you carry that cannot surface in comfort. God allowed the wound so He could bring forth the warrior. God allowed the betrayal so He could reveal the blessing. God allowed the disappointment so He could pull you out of places you would have never left on your own. Some of the people in your life were never meant to stay, but you would have kept them. You would have held on to them because you loved them. You would have fought for them because you believed them. And so God had to let them hurt you. God had to allow the sting, the rejection, the abandonment, the disrespect, not to break you, but to free you. Every sting they gave you was the key that unlocked your next level. Every betrayal they delivered was the push that moved you into alignment with God's will. Every disappointment was God's whisper saying, move away from what is too small for you. Move away from what cannot grow you. Move away from what will only weaken you. You see, pain is not always the enemy. Sometimes pain is the messenger. Pain delivers truths you would have ignored. Pain reveals character you would have never questioned. Pain exposes hearts you would have blindly trusted. Pain uncovers intentions that were hidden behind the smiles, compliments, and empty promises. Pain is one of God's most precise tools because pain goes where comfort cannot. Pain reaches the parts of your soul that peace never touches. Pain cuts away what is attached to you but not aligned with you. Pain removes what you thought you needed so God can give you what you truly need. There are people who could only live your life through hurt. If they had walked away peacefully, you would have chased them. If they had departed gently, you would have held on to the memory of them. If they had exited with kindness, you would have reopened the door. So God allowed the hurt to seal that door shut. God allowed the hurt to make sure you never go back. God allowed the hurt so you would never again try to resurrect something He already buried. You don't return to what God has removed. You don't rebuild what God has demolished. You don't cling to what God used the pain to cut away. Some of the people who wounded you were chosen by God for that specific assignment. Their role in your life was not to comfort you. Their role was to awaken you. Their role was to stretch your spirit, break your pride, sharpen your discernment, deepen your trust, and push you closer to God. They were not there to love you forever. They were there to shape you for a season. And when their assignment was complete, God removed them by allowing the very thing that would guarantee separation, hurt. You must understand something deep. Not every attack comes from the enemy. There are attacks that come from God. There are pains that come by divine design. There are wounds orchestrated from heaven because God is not trying to destroy you. God is trying to redirect you. God uses discomfort to change your direction. God uses heartbreak to change your vision. God uses the unexpected to change your position. God uses what you did not want so He can give you what you need. And when you look back later, you will realize something powerful. If they never hurt you, you would have never grown. If they never betrayed you, you would have never awakened. If they never walked away, you would have never stepped into your purpose. If they never broke your heart, God's healing would have never rebuilt you into someone wiser, stronger, softer in spirit, but fiercer in purpose. You cannot become who God designed you to be while holding on to people God never intended to stay. You cannot step into your calling while clinging to those who only drain your spirit. You cannot rise to your next level while tied to hearts that refuse to grow. Some people are spiritually too small to walk with you into what God has prepared. Some people are too limited to handle the greatness God is releasing in you. Some people are too wounded within themselves to support the healed version of you. And so God allowed them to hurt you, not because they were evil, but because they were incapable. They could not carry the weight of your destiny. So God removed them by using the one language you would understand, pain. God does not always speak through blessings. God speaks through wounds. God speaks through closed doors. God speaks through unexpected endings. God speaks through disappointments that feel unbearable. And when God speaks through pain, the message is loud, clear, and impossible to ignore. You may not like the message, but the message is necessary. Pain shifts you. Pain wakes you. Pain matures you. Pain strengthens you. Pain purifies you. Pain positions you for the greatness God is preparing. There were conversations you needed to hear, so God let them talk about you. There were truths you needed to see, so God let them reveal their real character. There were masks you needed to witness falling, so God let you be close enough to watch them slip. There were illusions that needed to break, so God let time show you who they truly were. You were never meant to live blind. You were meant to live wise. And wisdom is not given through comfort. Wisdom is given through experience, especially painful experience. God allowed the hurt because your destiny is too important for you to be surrounded by wrong people. If the wrong voices remained in your life, they would have polluted your purpose. If the wrong influences stayed close, they would have poisoned your clarity. If the wrong attitudes stayed connected to your spirit, they would have suffocated your growth. God loves you too much to let you stay surrounded by those who cannot spiritually breathe at the same altitude you're rising to. And to protect you, God had to let them hurt you. Do not think your pain was random. Not one tear you cried was wasted. Not one night you felt alone escaped God's attention. Not one moment of confusion went unnoticed by God. Your hurt was the push God used to move you away from what could have destroyed you. Your hurt was the fire that refined you. Your hurt was the separation that saved your destiny. Your hurt was the doorway to a deeper connection with God. Because when people hurt you, you run to God differently. You cling to God with the desperation you didn't have before. You pray with a clarity that only pain creates. You discover that God is truly your anchor, your strength, your comfort, your source, your protector. And in that place of raw surrender, God molded you, God refined you, God revealed you. You may not realize it yet, but the version of you that is emerging after this pain is a version that could have never existed without it. The pain awakened your discernment. The pain sharpened your spirit. The pain humbled your ego. The pain softened your heart. The pain strengthened your faith. The pain taught you to depend entirely on God. The pain stripped away false identities. The pain broke old patterns. The pain exposed toxic attachments. The pain revealed the true motives of people around you. The pain rebuilt your inner foundation, not on people, but on God alone. And once God becomes the foundation, no betrayal can shake you. No disappointment can sink you. No rejection can break you. Because you finally learn that your worth does not come from how people treat you. Your worth comes from the God who created you. And when you understand that, something powerful happens. Your spirit becomes unshakable. You stop begging people to stay. You stop chasing after those who walked away. You stop trying to prove yourself to those who never valued you. You stop allowing other people's opinions to poison your peace. You stop living for external validation. You stop tying your identity to people who don't even know who they are. God wanted them to hurt you because the pain forced you to grow. Pain was your teacher. Pain was your elevator. Pain was your purifier. Pain was the seed of your evolution. Everything you are becoming is being built on the foundation of what you survived. You didn't just go through pain, you grew through it. You didn't just endure the betrayal, you were transformed by it. You didn't just survive the wound, you became wiser, stronger, deeper, and more spiritually aligned because of it. And here is something you must never forget. The people who hurt you were part of your story, but they are not part of your destiny. They were participants in your past, but they are not partners in your future. They were chapters, not the whole book. Their role was temporary. Their purpose was seasonal. Their presence was never meant to be permanent. And God used the hurt to detach what your heart would have never released. Now that the pain has pushed you forward, you must not look back. Do not return to the people God removed. Do not reopen doors God has closed. Do not hold on to what God used the hurt to separate you from. When God delivers you from something, it means that thing was dangerous to your spirit. When God removes someone, it means their presence would have hindered your growth. When God shuts a door, it means what's behind it is too small for your destiny. Your pain has positioned you. Your hurt has prepared you. Your tears watered the soil of your next season. And the very people who wounded you became the unknowing builders of your strength. They did not realize that in trying to break you, they pushed you into the arms of God. They did not realize that in trying to diminish you, they ignited the fire of spiritual power within you. They did not realize that in hurting you, they were assisting God in shifting you. And now you are rising. Now you are awakening. Now you are stepping into a version of yourself that is unrecognizable even to you. Because you are no longer fueled by fear, you are fueled by purpose. You are no longer guided by insecurities, you are guided by God. You are no longer attached to wrong people. You are connected to your destiny. You are no longer seeking approval. You are standing in truth. You are no longer tied to the past. You are stepping into the future God designed for you. The hurt was the doorway. The pain was the preparation. The betrayal was the breakthrough. And now God is about to reveal why it all had to happen. You will look back and realize that the people who hurt you were instruments, not obstacles. They were catalysts, not curses. They were assignments, not anchors. Their exit created the space God needed to move you higher. Their absence created the silence God needed to speak to you clearly. Their rejection created the isolation God needed to elevate you spiritually. When God allows hurt, It is never to diminish you. It is to strip away the layers that have been suffocating your potential. Hurt forces you to confront truths you avoided, emotions you buried, patterns you normalized, and attachments you justified. You begin to see with a clarity you never had before because pain wipes away the fog. Pain sharpens perception. Pain exposes what your comfort concealed. And sometimes the greatest revelation God gives you about your life is hidden inside the very wound you try to escape. That hurt becomes the turning point, the hinge on which your entire spiritual transformation pivots, because God knows that growth rarely comes while your life is undisturbed. Growth comes when something shakes you so deeply that you cannot remain who you used to be. There are seasons when God allows hurt because you were settling for less than what He ordained. You were shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that could not carry your calling. You were watering down your spirit to satisfy the insecurities of others. You were dimming your light so someone else would not feel overshadowed. But God did not create you to live small. God created you to embody the fullness of the purpose He placed in you. And if your environment tries to suffocate that purpose, God will disrupt it. If your relationships limit your growth, God will disturb them. If your surroundings keep you comfortable but spiritually stagnant, God will shake them until every false attachment falls away. Hurt becomes the divine alarm clock that wakes your spirit from complacency. Hurt reminds you that your destiny requires motion, not stagnation. And God will not allow you to decay in a place He did not design for your future. Some of the people who hurt you were not attacking you out of power. They were reacting to the light within you. Your strength triggered their insecurity. Your vision intimidated their fear. Your growth exposed their stagnation. And rather than rising with you, they retaliated in the only way they knew, through hurt, through distance, through envy disguised as criticism. Through unfamiliar coldness, they used to justify their discomfort. But God saw their hearts long before you did. God saw what you refused to acknowledge. So the hurt was not punishment, it was protection. God protected you from people who could not celebrate your elevation. God protected you from hearts that secretly resented what He placed in you. God protected you from relationships that would have eroded your confidence if you stayed connected too long. Sometimes the pain you feel is God blocking access to someone who does not deserve a front row seat in the story He is writing for your life. And while you cried over what you lost, God was preparing what you were about to gain. You wept over doors that closed, not knowing God was already shaping doors that could only open because of that very pain. Hurt is not only the ending, it is also the beginning. Pain is not only the breaking, it is also the awakening. God uses endings to realign your life with His divine architecture. You may think you lost something essential, but God knows what was weighing you down. You may think you were abandoned, but God knows you were being released. Pain is the language God uses when your destiny requires a new direction that your comfort would never choose. There are relationships. You were praying for God to bless, but God had already decided to break them. Not because you were unworthy of love or loyalty, but because those relationships were unworthy of the future God is preparing for you. Some connections look supportive on the surface, but carry spiritual corrosion underneath. And God will not allow your purpose to be buried under attachments that drain your energy and dilute your focus. God wants your spirit free, your mind clear, your loyalty aligned with His guidance, not trapped in cycles of pain that keep you spiritually asleep. So God will let the hurt come, not to destroy you, but to extract you from what was quietly destroying your destiny. Sometimes the hurt feels so personal that you think God has forgotten you, but the opposite is true. The hurt is the sign that God is deeply involved in your life. The hurt is the evidence that God is rearranging your story. When God is silent, He is not absent, He is working. When God is hidden, He is protecting. When God is breaking pieces apart, He is preparing to rebuild them stronger. God is not only watching over you, God is intervening in ways you cannot yet understand. You may not see the reason now, but you will see the result later. Every tear, every disappointment, every betrayal is being woven into a future you will one day thank God for. What you need to understand is this: the people who hurt you did not interrupt God's plan, they activated it. Their actions did not derail your destiny, they accelerated it. Their betrayal did not block your blessings, it redirected them to the right path. Sometimes God allows hurt because your heart was too loyal to the wrong people. You saw their potential, God saw their limits. You saw what they could be, God saw what they would never become. You saw how much you could help them, God saw how much they would wound you. You saw the emotional connection, God saw the spiritual damage. God always sees beyond your affection. God sees truth, reality, future, alignment. And when what you love is misaligned with what God has destined, pain becomes the tool of separation. There were seasons where you would have destroyed yourself trying to hold on to people who are not meant to carry the weight of your calling. And God had to teach you through hurt that not everyone who walks with you deserves to stay with you. Not everyone who understands your past can handle your future. Not everyone who applauded your beginning will support your elevation. God will sometimes let people hurt you so you learn not to depend on human loyalty but on divine guidance. Because loyalty without alignment becomes bondage, and God loves you too much to let you remain bound. Pain teaches you to choose God above all. Pain refocuses your priorities. Pain clears your spiritual vision. When everyone else fails you, you discover the unwavering presence of God. When every hand releases you, the hand of God becomes your anchor. When every voice turns silent, the voice of God becomes louder. Pain does not silence your spirit, it amplifies God's direction. And when you follow that direction, you step into the life that was created for you long before any human opinion shaped you. You must also understand that hurt shifts your spiritual identity. You did not go through what you went through to remain the same. God is not shaping you into a more fragile version of yourself. God is shaping you into a more resilient one. Hurt grows your wisdom, your intuition, your spiritual stability. Hurt teaches you boundaries. Hurt helps you recognize dangerous patterns. Hurt elevates your discernment so you stop allowing anyone into the sacred space of your heart. Hurt teaches you to love without losing yourself. Hurt teaches you to trust God more than people. Hurt teaches you that you can walk away from what damages your peace without apologizing for choosing your well-being. And as you heal, you will realize the depth of God's strategy. There was a situation you prayed God would remove, but He didn't. Instead, He allowed them to intensify. Why? Because sometimes God knows you will never leave something unless it becomes too painful to stay. So the hurt increased until you could no longer tolerate what was beneath you spiritually. The pain grew until you finally chose yourself. The wound deepened until it pushed you toward God. That was not abandonment. That was divine intervention. God aligned the circumstances so you would rise into the version of yourself He designed long before the hurt ever touched you. Soon you will understand that the pain was not about breaking you, it was about building you. God was not taking things away from you. God was making room. God was not punishing you. God was positioning you. God was not ignoring you. God was preparing you. And everything you lost in that season was something that could not go where you are headed. God removed it through hurt to protect the greatness He placed within you. There comes a moment in your journey when the hurt you endured stops being something you simply survived and becomes something that begins to explain you. You start to recognize that the pain did not just push you out of certain relationship, it pushed you into a deeper relationship with God. It refined your hearing. It sharpened your inner sight. It made your heart more sensitive to divine guidance. You begin to realize that the same people who wounded you were unknowingly the ones God used to awaken spiritual gifts inside you that were dormant. You did not know how deeply you could discern until someone betrayed you. You did not know how intensely you could pray until someone broke you. You did not know how fully you could trust God until someone made you see that human promises are fragile. Hurt changes the core of your spiritual posture. It transitions you from leaning on people to leaning entirely on God. There is a spiritual maturity that only comes after you have been wounded by someone you believed would never harm you. When your expectations collapse, you are forced to examine what you built them on. Were you depending on human loyalty more than divine direction? Were you expecting people to be consistent in ways only God can be? Was your trust placed in fragile hands? Pain is often the tool God uses to remove your dependence on what cannot sustain you. Pain reveals how easily people can shift, how quickly feelings can fade, how limited the human intention truly is. And while that revelation hurts, it also frees you. Because once you stop expecting people to be what only God can be, you finally walk in spiritual strength instead of emotional vulnerability. You may not see it now, but God is using the hurt to strengthen your spiritual immunity. Before this season, you absorbed too much, you tolerated too much, you excused too much. You allowed too many toxic voices to have access to your heart, but the hurt becomes the boundary you never had. Hurt teaches you that not every connection is healthy. Hurt teaches you that not every conversation deserves your energy. Hurt teaches you that not every presence in your life is meant to remain. Sometimes God allows someone to hurt you so deeply that you never again allow that type of spirit to come near your peace. The wound becomes your protection because it builds within you a standard, a divine standard that no longer accepts emotional chaos as love. And as you reflect, you will see how God used the very people who hurt you as divine mirrors. They reflected parts of you that needed healing, truths you needed to confront, weaknesses you needed to overcome. Some of the pain was not about what they did to you, it was about what God wanted to reveal in you. Hurt exposes the hidden places where you still seek approval. Hurt reveals the lingering fear of rejection. Hurt highlights the parts of you that still need validation from people instead of rooted identity from God. Pain does not come to humiliate, it comes to unveil. You cannot heal what you cannot see, and God will allow hurt when He wants to bring unseen wounds to the surface so they can finally leave your life permanently. There are times when God allows hurt because He is teaching you the art of spiritual separation. You were tied to people emotionally, but God saw that your destinies were moving in opposite directions. He knew you would not release them voluntarily because your heart was too loyal, too hopeful, too patient. So God allowed the hurt to create a separation that your spirit would obey even if your heart resisted. Hurt becomes the door God closes when your emotions refuse to let go. You think you are losing someone, but you are actually gaining yourself. God is freeing you from attachments that were draining your purpose. God is breaking emotional ties that were weakening your spiritual stability. God is pulling you away from people who would eventually sabotage what He is preparing for you. The hurt was not punishment, it was preservation. God preserved your destiny by allowing their true intentions to surface. God preserved your calling by exposing who could not be trusted. God preserved your peace by removing those who thrive in disruption. God preserved your worth by freeing you from those who were blind to it. You cried over what you thought was loss, but God saw it as rescue. God saw what you could not see. God knew what you did not know. God removed what you were not ready to release because He understood how dangerous that connection would have become to your spiritual future. And now you must understand something even deeper. Hurt is part of your spiritual training. God is raising you. God is strengthening you. God is preparing you to carry more, to withstand more, to rise higher without collapsing under pressure. Every wound has shaped your endurance. Every disappointment has sharpened your focus. Every betrayal has refined your discernment. God is building spiritual muscle through emotional pressure. You are being prepared for a life that requires inner fortitude, not fragile sensitivity. And while the process feels overwhelming, the purpose is divine. God is equipping you with the ability to face challenges without breaking, to discern spirits without doubting yourself, to stand alone without losing your confidence, to walk forward without needing applause or reassurance. Eventually, you will see how God used the hurt to stretch your capacity. Before the pain, your confidence was dependent on external peace. But after the pain, your confidence comes from God alone. Before the hurt, your joy depended on people. After the hurt, your joy comes from the presence of God. Before the betrayal, your direction depended on opinions. After the betrayal, your direction flows from divine guidance. You are becoming spiritually independent, not detached or cold, but whole, complete, and rooted in God's presence in a way that no human relationship can threaten. There is a strength that emerges when hurt no longer defines you, but refines you. When the wound stops being a source of bitterness and becomes a source of wisdom. When the memory no longer triggers pain, but gratitude. When the betrayal no longer restricts your trust, but expands your discernment. That is when you know God has completed a work inside you. Hurt is the fire. Healing is the refinement. Pain is the breaking. Wisdom is the result. And everything God allowed was necessary to bring you into the maturity you are walking toward now. You are stepping into a version of yourself that the person who hurt you would not even recognize. They wounded who you were, but they unintentionally strengthened who you are becoming. God took the shards of your brokenness and forged them into spiritual armor. God took the emptiness they left and filled it with purpose. God took the silence they created and used it to speak to your spirit. God took the abandonment and used it to rebuild your faith. God took the tears they caused and used them to cleanse your soul. Everything they meant for harm became the tool God used for your evolution. And now, without even realizing it, you are rising above the level at which the hurt occurred. You are being elevated into a place where the wound cannot follow you. You are being lifted into a spiritual season where the memory no longer holds power. You are ascending into a future where the pain becomes part of your story but no longer part of your identity. Hurt was the valley, but God is about to place you on the mountaintop of clarity, strength, and divine purpose. And from that place, you will look back, not with regret, but with revelation. You will see that the hurt was not the end. It was the preparation. It was the turning point. It was the divine push that moved you into the destiny God had prepared long before the pain ever touched your life. And now, as you stand at the threshold of everything God has been preparing you for, understand this truth with unwavering conviction. The hurt was the gateway, not the grave. What felt like the breaking of your spirit was actually the breaking of the limits that held you back. What felt like abandonment was the exact moment God stepped closer. What felt like rejection was the redirection your destiny required. Every tear watered the soil of the very blessings God is bringing into your life. Every disappointment stretched the capacity of your faith. Every closed door protected the purity of your purpose. Hurt did not weaken you. It forged you into someone capable of carrying the weight of the destiny God ordained for you long before anyone had the power to wound you. You must walk forward now with a stronger spirit, a clearer mind, and a heart no longer controlled by what happened, but empowered by what God is creating through it. Release the bitterness. Not because the pain was small, but because the future God is preparing is too great to be slowed by it. Forgive not to excuse what was done to you, but to free your spirit from the chains that would hold you back from divine elevation. Let the hurt become the lesson, the wisdom, the transformation that shapes your next season. And as you rise with gratitude, not for the pain itself, but for the God who used it to reshape your life, restructure your identity, and realign your destiny. You are no longer defined by what broke you. You are defined by the strength God placed within you. You are no longer tied to the people who hurt you. You are tied to the purpose God is pulling you toward. Walk with your head lifted, your spirit grounded, and your faith unshakable. Because when God allowed them to hurt you, He was not writing ending. He was opening a chapter that only strength, clarity, and divine destiny can write. And now, because of everything you endured, you are finally ready for the life God always intended for you to live.